and can I firstly thank the people of Perth for continuing to place their confidence and trust in me. If you were to ask me, Stephen, what is the single central reason why you are not proposing to recontest? 20 years is a long time for any member of Parliament. 6 years is a long time on the executive. But this may be something that only Western Australians can understand. But this is something that I cannot, in all good conscience, say to the people of Perth that I can continue to do, win, lose or draw at the next election, for another 3 years. 20 years I can do, 23 years I can't. So I have made that decision. I've been thinking about this matter for some considerable time, but other events have not allowed me to have the clarity of thought which I've had in the last couple of days, as other members have. Can I thank the House for the way in which they have dealt with me over the years, sometimes harshly, most times benevolently. Can I also say that I'm very grateful to two Prime Ministers, Prime Minister Rudd and Prime Minister Gillard, for the opportunity that they have given me to serve in the Cabinet, in the National and on the National Security Committee of the Government, both as Foreign Minister and as Defence Minister. For a long period of time, too long, I was a Shadow Minister, but my last portfolio was as Shadow Minister for Education in 2006-2007, and I was expecting to be the Minister for Education. I think I'm probably the only Minister for Foreign Affairs who for the first 3 days was disappointed he wasn't Minister for Education. But I came to become accustomed with that. And when I was asked which other portfolio I might like to serve in, I chose Defence because it kept me in the national security arena, something I had not, frankly, focused on as an opposition shadow spokesperson. And so I've had the good fortune of being involved in protecting and securing and maintaining the national security interests of the Commonwealth for nearly 6 years. I don't want to give the lengthy list, but I think we've done some good things in those times. The work that we did to encourage the United States to join the East Asia Summit, the work we've done to encourage India to enhance its relationship with Australia, the work we've done with Africa to enhance both our strategic and economic relationships, and as Minister for Defence, despite some critiques to the contrary, I'm very pleased with the strategic elegance of the 2013 White Paper, and can I say I am very proud of what I have sought to do together with the leadership of the Defence Force in regard to defence culture and treatment of women. I came to this place following upon some long years as a Labor Party supporter and activist. I joined the party in 1975. I became the Principal Private Secretary to the Attorney General of Western Australia in 1983. He, of course, was Joe Berenson, one of my predecessors as the member for Perth. I then became State Secretary of the Western Australian branch of the Labor Party. I became State Secretary because I had to wait for my good mate Rick Charlesworth, known as Grumpy to two of his mates, the only two he has. He's heard that before. I had to wait for Rick to decide that he wanted to do other things before I could seek to become the member for Perth. So I became the State Secretary, which was a very good training ground, I think, for serious public and political activity. Paul Keating then asked me to come and serve, firstly on his staff, firstly as Treasurer and Deputy Prime Minister and Prime Minister, and Paul is a one-off, and so that collective experience came to me as the member for Perth when I was elected in 1993. Rick Charlesworth handed the seat over to me in good order, and he was my campaign director. I let the local Liberal Party know in Perth that I will be the campaign director for the re-election of the Labor Party in Perth. You should fear that more than you fear me as a candidate. Can I thank some of my colleagues? It's not possible to mention all of the people who you want to thank, but in a long period in the Parliament, particularly when regrettably sort of 2/3, 1/3 is opposition rather than government, there are a lot of issues you go through where relationships are forged through fire, and I just want to mention a couple, not necessarily in any order. I am great mates with Albo, and I said to him the other day, Albo, if you become Deputy Prime Minister, I'll be able to call you both Leader and Deputy at the same time and be right, because for 6 years I've been Albo's Deputy as Deputy Leader of the House. But we've known each other for a long time, he from the left, I from the right, but we are mainstream Labor, and it's been one of the great joys of my life to be not just a colleague of Albo's, but a close personal friend, and to work with him. I think he has been a hero of the Labor movement as Leader of the House in this Parliament. Jenny Mack. I sit next to Jenny Mack in the ERC, and I always have followed with Jenny my mother's adage that there's always someone worse off than you, and your job in life is to give someone a helping hand. I have never let her down when it comes to a ERC submission about those people who do need a helping hand. I can't look at her, she'll make me cry, but that relationship also forged through a long period in opposition. My mate Stephen Conroy in the Senate. Conroy is misunderstood by many. He is the most...
The member for Perth has the call.
Conroy is the bravest member of the Parliament that I know. He has raw courage, raw integrity, raw decency, and will not deviate from what he believes in principle because it might have adverse consequences for himself. Finally, in this round, there are others, but I'll get to the 17-minute time if I'm not careful, is my great friend, the member for Lilley. We became State Secretaries together, we came into this House together, we became ministers together, and I always thought that Wayne was the person, when we were both in opposition and government, who most understood the need for a Labor Party and a Labor government to represent people who were of low or middle incomes, who looked to the Labor Party and the trade union movement as the institutions in Australian society which had an obligation to look after them. No one, in my view, crystallised that understanding or that commitment better than Wayne. And I thought in the course of our time in opposition, both as Family and Community Services Shadow and Shadow Treasurer, that he did more than any other Shadow Minister to put ourselves in the position to win when we did in 2007 in terms of his policy and political attack upon the Howard government and his ministers. There are a number of other people who have come into this place in later years for whom I have the highest regard and warm affection, and I'm proposing to volunteer my gratuitous private advice to them as they continue in the Parliament and in senior positions in the party. I will have the opportunity to, because I'm remaining as Defence Minister for a period, the opportunity to formally thank those people I have worked with in the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade and in the Australian Defence Force and the Defence Organisation. But I've had the great privilege of representing our country overseas. I've always tried to do that in an appropriate and civilised and dignified manner. But I've always been impressed with the quality of the senior civil servants and uniformed officials that we have in those two departments, and it's been a great honour to work with those. As Minister for Defence, with two CDFs, Angus Houston and David Hurley, I have, as an individual Defence Minister on my watch, seen more deaths than an Australian Minister for Defence since Vietnam. And it's at those moments when you look into the Chief's eyes and you see the integrity, the decency, the commitment of those two individuals, and they are both Australians of whom we can be proud. I'll make other remarks about the DFAT and defence officials that I have worked with, but I've had the opportunity of working closely with quality, first-class Australian public servants, Michael L'Estrange, Dennis Richardson, both as Defence and DFAT, and also Gillian Bird, who acted in Defence, together with Ian Watt and Duncan Lewis. Can I say of Dennis Richardson, who, when the Hawke Keating challenge was on, he and I were the ones behind the scenes who ensured that life went on in a civilised way for those people who weren't combatants. Dennis is one of the all-time great Australian civil servants, and any and every Australian government is well served by his frank and fearless advice, which it is, in the finest and truest traditions. Can I thank the House, can I thank the clerks, the attendants and the cleaners. When I first turned up for my first day of work on a Monday morning when I was on Paul's staff, I got in about sort of 7:30, 7:45, and the cleaners were there and they said, "Oh no darling, it's much too early for them, you know, you'll have to wait, go down to Aussie's and have a cup of coffee." But I've always been well treated by the cleaners in the early hours of the morning and the late hours of night as I wander through having done paperwork. Because in a sense this is a retirement from the Parliament come the electorate, can I focus on a couple of things so far as federal Perth is concerned. I won't mention all of my electorate staff, but members know how valuable and essential they are to us. I just want to mention one. Anne Keane has been on my staff for all of my time as the member for Perth. She was also on Rick Charlesworth's staff for almost all of Rick's time as member for Perth. Rick had 10 years, I've effectively had 20. Having Rick for 10 years, it's probably the equivalent of having me for 20, but I make this point. I'm the longest serving federal member for Perth, but Anne is the person who, since Federation, has made the longest continuous contribution for federal Labor in federal Perth. And she has been a heroine, and I've been blessed for her loyalty and for the work that she has done for me. Thank you. If I think of Jenny Macklin, I will dissemble. Let me conclude by saying, when I came into this place back in 1993, Jane and Hugo were in the house, and Maddie was on the way. Hugo's now 21, Maddie's now 19, or as I often say, because they're a pigeon pair, Hugo's 21 going on 19 and Maddie's 19 going on 21. And Jane has been long-suffering. Public life of its very nature as a participant is inherently selfish so far as our families are concerned, and so the burden falls on the spouse and the children. In one sense I've been blessed because my children have never known anything else, so for them it's standard fare. But for Jane, as it is for other spouses, from time to time it has had its moments. But after 20 years, if it's a choice between spending 3 more years here to make it 23, or the next few years doing whatever comes along in Perth, which those people would know because of the people I've taken to it, Condoleezza Rice, Hillary Clinton and a few others. I very much enjoy and love living in Perth, and I'm looking very much forward to doing that and continuing to help federal Labor in whatever capacity, not just in Perth, but in Western Australia generally. I thank the House.